And we're live, baby. Good evening, Hebrews and Shebrews. Hello, everybody. Hello, Abu Rafi, Mansour Ashkar. How are you doing, my man?
Hello, Abu Rai. It's a pleasure to be here. Always a pleasure. And everybody, welcome to our Druze talk of Khalifa and Mansour. Today, I'm going to let Khalifa introduce our very special guest. Someone that actually I've been talking to for a very long time, only I forgot because I've been, losing track of all the messages that I'm having. But I'm so happy that we got reunited now. So Khalifa, do the pleasure.
Yeah, before I introduce our respected guest here, let me just say, please, to all our viewers, just to write in the comments and share the link so we can have some attraction. We have people are already gathering, and it's a pleasure doing this. I've been missing it. And today we have the unique opportunity to speak to Joseph Chamaon. And he's a Christian guy who fled out of Syria. And we lately been discussing that the minority sect that been almost silent in the whole Syrian case is the Christian, even more than the Alawites. Nobody hears about the Christians, how they are maneuvering or handling the situation in Syria. And Joseph somehow caught one of our lives, and we start discussing. And then I knew that he had perfect English, and we said that's a beautiful opportunity. Unfortunately, we have this technical issue that he can't get live with us in video. We'll hope that we can do it another time. So, hello, like people don't know it, but although he's Syrian and he lives in Sweden, but he had the Israeli flag in his profile picture on Facebook. So I'm wondering, like, please, Joseph, please stand and have a bow and tell us a bit about yourself, how you end up in Sweden, and what's the connection or relation to the Israeli flag?
Yeah, thank you so much. Am I audible to you all? Okay, good. Yeah, thank you for the kind introduction. I'm definitely not better than any of you guys. I want to start my statement, my turn here by can we just appreciate these two gentlemen and all the effort they've been putting into the Druze question, but generally speaking, into common sense and shedding a light on the situation that's been going on in Syria and the Middle East, and the stark contrast in comparison to the Israeli society. I'm in love with people who can think, people who live a love life. Yeah, it's not difficult because it's easy. It's possible, always possible, if you shed the, so to speak, the outfit of identity politics and victimhood. It's not difficult to love Israel at all. So I'm going to talk about myself. My name is Joseph Chamaon. I was born into a Christian family in Syria, of course, the northeastern part of Syria, which is Al-Hasaka province. I am Christian by culture, by affiliation, family-wise. The vast majority of my my family are Christian, as far as I'm concerned. We do have a section, a part of the family in Turkey, what's now known as Turkey, who were Islamized by the Ottoman Empire. Kurdish affiliates of the Ottoman Empire, that is, more precisely speaking. And they think they're Kurdish. They think they're Muslim. They are Muslim. I mean, the forced conversion, and they go. The elderly of them, especially the women, go to Mecca, to Saudi Arabia, and they do the Hajj, the pilgrimage. And yeah, it was a pretty sobering experience to realize what happened to my own family. We lived in Syria. I left Syria in 2014. I was around 15 years old, 14, 15 years old, and we escaped. So there's a timeline, chronological timeline that starts with what today's HTS, Hayat Tahrir al-Sham, which is now the Syrian government led by Ahmed al-Shara. moving. So starting with that, what they used to be called, which is Al-Nusra Front, moving to Al-Qaeda's newest, poster baby, which was ISIS taking over Syria, even overpowering Jabhat al-Nusra. So in 2012, we were attacked by Jabhat al-Nusra, who tried to basically advance. Ahmad al-Shara, we all know him now. He was called Abu Muhammad al-Jawlani or whatever, but he was delegated by Abu Bakr al-Baghdadi, which was the leader of ISIS, to basically take over Syria and make it into an affiliate of ISIS within the whole frame of the global jihad. Now, the separation that happened, which the world later came to learn, or discover, is that Jabhat al-Nusra wanted to have a sort of like Afghanistan kind of rule, the Taliban. They wanted their own, state, local, and is local Islamic state, sort of, as I told you, like Afghanistan. And the conflict erupted from there, and ISIS and Jabhat al-Nusra actually attacked each other, after having been, basically like business partners, right? The two leaders. Yeah, it was a delegation. I mean, I delegate you to go and take over Syria, within the framework of Al-Qaeda or Daesh, ISIS. But no, it didn't work that way. Jabhat al-Nusra attacked our city in 2012. I was 13 years old, and they engaged in an 8-hour battle against the Syrian regime forces, which were still present. The Syrian regime was situated onto a mountain. I don't recall what the mountain was called. It's very local to Al-Hasaka city. And basically counterattacked with artillery shells every 8 seconds. And you can imagine an artillery shell, which weighs tens of kilograms, each, a shell, being heard across kilometers by a 13-year-old child. This may be inappropriate to say, to mention, now as someone that is approaching 30 in his late 20s, but at that point, especially live on YouTube, but at that point I remember, peeing myself as a child because it was so loud. Every 8 seconds, a shell. A battle of 8 hours total, by the way, 1/3 of a day, non-stop. Yeah, we were very scared. We thought we were going to be basically the same thing would happen to us, like it happened to Al-Mosul people, the Christians of Iraq. Fortunately, it didn't happen. The Syrian regime was able to thwart the attack, fend them off, and we survived. But I remember, yeah, you asked me a question?
Wow, no, I'm just kind of want to recap what you just said right now. So basically, the leader of ISIS, al-Baghdadi, appointed al-Jawlani to take over Syria, and now Jawlani actually took over Syria. Yes, they split it. They had some business kind of argument, but the goal was achieved. Jawlani, who was appointed by ISIS, later on Al-Qaeda, to take over Syria, it just came to my mind. He took over Syria. He succeeded. And then you have Donald Trump and others in Europe coming right now and starting some kind of a relationship with him. But that's just insane. Now, again, I don't want to... Sorry, what?
No, I wanted to say it is shameful. It was a moment of disbelief when I discovered the news with Trump, unfortunately, there's this proverb, I think, I don't know if it's French, if it's English, but it says in politics there's never a permanent enemy, never a permanent friend. It's very liquid. It's very, it changes shape. And maybe you have to do that in politics, But yeah, it was a kind of a betrayal by Trump, at least symbolically. I'm not accusing the guy of being a traitor or anything, But what happened was definitely hard to stomach. Shaking the hand of a terrorist.
Yeah. So let's get back to what you were saying. So you are a Christian boy living in a Christian village in Syria, and now you're being attacked by the forces of Jawlani, and there's shelling there's explosion, and there's a fierce fight happening. And, you know, as a little kid, you're terrified. Can you tell us what do you remember from these moments? What was happening there?
Well, what I even remember the weeks before planning ahead, because, you know, the word went by, and even school children. I remember coming back home from school, and every now and then you would find people. Now, granted, they were from other schools. Boys are like they're 10 years old, 11, 12, 8 years old, telling us, الجيش الحر قادم. The Free Syrian Army is on its way, which is basically the umbrella term for all these factions, this Free Syrian Army, basically, you know, infiltrated by the Muslim Brotherhood. So they had a point in that, saying, calling it this Free Syrian Army. And yeah, we are coming. And how did that boy, you know, while I was walking home, you know, close to a highway, how did he just pick me? Well, they knew. People knew, you know, this is a Christian neighborhood. We were a Christian neighborhood. We were a tight-knit society, you know. So, yeah, Christians would group, actually, even, you know, with their addresses where they lived, resided. So, yeah, preparing to that, I thought he was just bluffing me, you know. He was just making things up like a boy, like I was personally. Yeah, what do you know? No, it was true. It's called foreshadowing, right? I mean, lo and behold, the next week it didn't happen, but a few weeks later, what I just described earlier was the incident he talked about. They tried to invade our province and our city, and I feared for my life. I was like, yeah, my mom is probably going to be raped, for the lack of a better word. My sister is going to, I don't know, married off to someone else, enslaved as a child, being forced to serve as a maid in somebody's home, because that's what happened to my family 100 years ago. I mean, actually, and this, you know, connects to why I love the Jews and the Israeli state. We, with the only sole exception of the final solution, which was the unthinkable and unmatched industrial killing of a race, of a group of human beings, we had the same experience in the 1915 Ottoman genocide, which we culturally call Seifo, which means with the sword. You know, it's the massacre against the Armenians, the Syriacs, the Assyrians, and the Chaldeans, etc., etc., at the hands of the Ottoman genocide, with the help and the aid of the Kurdish factions at that time, being promised a national state, a national state, like an established, distinct, independent Kurdistan. It didn't happen, of course. You know, we know how the history transpired from there on, but we have went through a lot as Christians. The suffering, even today's anti-Semitism. I can draw comparisons to my childhood. You know, being spat at when you go to the local park. We had a big garden. We called it Hadiqat Tishrin, which is the October park. And you may guess why it's called October. It was actually the war against Israel by the Egyptians and the Syrians, right? So they named the local park 20 meters in front of my apartment, our apartment in the neighborhood, the Tishrin, the October park. So, and lo and behold, you advance, you walk 20, 30, 50 meters from your home, it's another neighborhood. It's a block, right? I mean, it takes a few minutes, like let's say 3 minutes to cross a block in some areas. I mean, yeah, a block in Europe may be bigger. I don't know. You may have to walk 5-10 minutes, but there it was 3 minutes and you've left the neighborhood. So people who you don't know, other children would throw empty, thick glass smoothie bottles, you know, that they had consumed at us, and the shards of glass would, you know, penetrate our legs and our feet, and they would say, they would curse, we would beep the sisters of Christians, we would beep the Christians, beep all Christians, and then that was a regular occurrence as a child. You know, that was a regular occurrence of for me as a child, and yeah, it traumatized me, to be very frank. It wasn't pleasant at all. you know.
So the persecution of Christians is something that you were experiencing already then as a child, not necessarily only by the authorities or by the radical terrorists, but by the Muslim neighbors that were living around you in the same block, as you might say.
The same block and the block beyond that, you know, the block next further ahead, and people from school. Bless you, my friend. I know this is not YouTube friendly, but it happens to all of us. So, yeah. What should I say? It was, and I'm not talking as an identity politician. I don't like identity politics, not just because I'm Christian. The same has been happening to the Druze. The same has been happening, and I'm not saying that because you guys are Druze. Like, there is this concept called universal truth, which most people now, literally speaking, are not comfortable with. I'm not that sort of a guy. I survived a civil war. I don't sugarcoat anything, and that's something you would be able to verify with me the whole journey, whether it's 10 years from now, whether it's 10 years ago.
For the people that are watching right now, just to put it in context, when someone says I survived the civil war, we're talking about a war that took the life of over 500,000 civilians. Majority of them were innocent civilians, women and children, in the most brutal way. They were slaughtered by the government. They were slaughtered by the Jolani people of Nusra, by ISIS. They were just stuck in the middle, where we have witnesses, and I spoke to some Syrians who also saw it with their own eyes as school kids. They were walking in the streets, and suddenly there will be helicopters dropping barrels of explosives into schoolyards, into markets. They saw in their own eyes people, dead bodies piling up in the streets. So when you meet someone that comes and tell you, I've survived that war, we're talking a very short period of time where they went through hell, and living hell. So, kudos to you, man, coming and speaking about it. I just wanted to make it, clear for the audience what kind of a war we're talking. We're talking about a civil war in Syria that was during the Assad regime, which collapsed right now, and Syria is on the footsteps of probably another coming civil war, only this time by the hands of jihadists, Al-Qaeda affiliated, and etc. Correct me if I'm wrong, Joseph.
I appreciate it, brother. No, I commend you. I concur. But I just want to point out something. I want to label what I said earlier about the children, school children threatening us. These incidents with the shards of glass, with the we want to beep your sisters, which basically is a saying of we want to sexually enslave your women because you guys are the so-called people of the book. You are infidels. Yada, yada, yada. I mean, Christians are second-class citizens. Don't even talk about the Jews and the Druze. They're not even third-class, unfortunately, within the Muslim social hierarchy. Those incidents happened before the Civil War. They happened when I was while I was in 5th grade, as a 10-year-old boy, going here and there, wandering about in our neighborhood. It happened probably in 2008, the late 2000s, that decade, right? And yeah, it's we were stuck between the hammer and the anvil. Christians in the Middle East, at least my experience, okay, and I'm not even talking about the second-hand accounts. I can talk about thousands of those, but it would invalidate it a little bit because it's me, I haven't been there. But my own experience, it brings me memory talking about this at the moment, honestly. But I remember us buying a pump-action shotgun, the sort of weapon you used to hunt, but it was a regular shotgun, not a hunting weapon. It was a lethal one, and we had a lot of weapons. I remember the day my dad removed the mattress in his and mom's bedroom. They have those queen size mattresses, and he lifts it up, and you have these boards of wood underlying the mattress, and he cuts that open, and he shows me a shotgun, and it was like, yeah, we're gonna have to defend ourselves when they come in. And this was days before Al-Jabhat al-Nusra infiltrated or tried to invade our city.
Wow. How old were you?
Yeah. So if I'm correct, and if I'm correct, and it was the same year as the attempted invasion, it was 2012. So I must have been, let me see, 13 years old.
So at the age of 13 years old, your father comes, take you to the room, lift up the bed, remove some wooden pallets, and shows you, here's the shotgun, my son. And
Yeah.
you need to learn how to use this. So if I'm gone, you can protect your mother and your sisters.
It was like we're gonna have to empty everything we have, all the bullets in our front door if they come and try to save us and whatever, cut our heads.
Were you thinking about it, that maybe, and sorry if I'm bringing up memories here, but I'm just trying to put this for perspective for the people in the West.
It's okay.
13 years old now is faced with the dilemma that he might be the last line of defense before they kidnap his sisters and make them sex slaves. Was that something that was going through your mind? Were you afraid of that? Were you looking at your sisters and thinking like, I'm not gonna let that happen?
It was the case, unfortunately, Mansour, my friend. My dad basically broke the news for me, to me. A 13-year-old doesn't really understand, I remember, like, when I was even younger, my dad would talk about communism and Shia, and in Arabic it's like Shi'i and Shiyu'i. It was, I had no idea what any of that was, but the more I grew up, the more I started to realize, okay, these people, and now I understood they were Sunnis, right? But the factions, but I understood we are not wanted here. So yeah, it was like, your mom could be made into a sex slave and they might kill me or behead me. And we have to use this shotgun to fend for ourselves, to defend ourselves in the face of anyone who might come. And if anything happens, we're going to empty, that shotgun, the pump action shotgun you could fill it with 8 cartridges, or whatever the technical word for a shotgun bullet is. So a case, let's say. So 8 of them, we're going to empty them, shooting at the front door, the entrance of the apartment. So it happened.
Wow.
And
I'm just trying to imagine it as a father. I have my kid here growing in Germany. He's having the best kind of childhood I can ever dream for a kid to have. But to have one day that I'll have to come to my kid and tell him, listen, here's the weapon. We might have to fight to the death. Me and you are going to hold it here. And if we fall, we're taking anyone with us. Because the next thing is going to happen is they're going to take your mother and your sister and they're going to rape them and they're going to make them sex slaves. Just to understand that this is the reality. The people in Syria, like Joseph, the people in Syria, like the Druze, relatives and friends of me and Khalifa, that's the reality they're going in right now. The Christians that are living right now in Syria, they're still in that reality. Nothing changed, guys. It actually maybe just got worse. Because back then, at least, there was some kind of protection from the people of the regime of Assad, some kind of protection. I'm not saying that it was a good man, no, but at least he was kind of keeping all these radicals at bay. Now everything is out there, and it's
Mansour, keep in mind one thing about the Christians. The Christians in Syria or in any other Muslim rule, for them to survive, they need to be they need to stand out, unique individuals. So they usually take pristine, I don't know, roles in society, like, doctors, engineers, things like that. Because if they don't have this extra advantage, they will be killed immediately. And
extra
now,
value, yeah.
Exactly. So this is pre-war, and now he's in a situation like I'm like you shocked as well, because after October 7, a week later, I was one of those who like somehow anticipated what's gonna happen, but I always thought it's gonna happen from Lebanon. I remember on March 2023, we sat on a coffee shop with a couple of friends, analysts, and we decided to make a whole podcast trying to alert people about the dangers of what's happening. And a few days after October 7, I was sitting here and I was positive that the Radwan forces are coming here, and I'm not armed, so I start making Molotov cocktails, or trying to make weapons from anything that I could put my hands on. And I'm still, I have the IDF, I have everybody here is armed. But in their situation, in my my feeling is like it's the nightmare of all nightmares. You have these unhuman hyenas coming with only hatred and bloodthirst and sex perversions. So this is the situation. This is their reality, and now you need to deal with it, which is
You know what you're mentioning now to help people understand. This is basically kind of a classical Islam empire, raiding groups behavior. When Islam took over Persia, instead of killing everybody, they realized that the Persians were very good at merchandise, merchants. They were very good at organizing a government. They were very good at politics, at numbers, at math. So what they said is, we're gonna kill anyone we can. We're gonna convert by force the rest, and we're gonna keep them just because they can run the government for us as slaves, while we take the women as sexual slaves and etc. And the same plan, by the way, Sinwar, it was revealed, had for Israel. He said in his doctrine, he said that once we go, we hopefully Hezbollah and Iran will join us, and then Syria and everybody. And then when we wipe out Israel from the river to the sea, we should not kill all the Jews, not immediately. He said that. We need to take over Tel Aviv and take over the minds of the Jewish people, the scientists, the government, everything, and have them work for us so they can run the government for us, because we are a bunch of raider terrorists and we don't know what to do. And this is a very good reminder to remind you what's happening in Syria right now. All these factions that are going around, not all of them are just doing it because of a religious zealot. This is a very cultural thing. It comes from the time of pre-Muhammad the Prophet, and during the early days of Islam and Muhammad, there were Bedouin Arab tribes that were fighting each other all the time. There's a lot of literature about, songs that they write about how they killed each other and took each other's wives as slaves. Muhammad came and united them, and then they went and started raiding and killing. So the same thing is happening in Syria right now. A lot of these groups, these factions, are coming with their Toyotas and with their machine guns. They're coming from all over the region. Because why? They see Syria as a bleeding golden cow. It's a place they can go and they can hunt and kill and loot. And let's just say, they're not dentists, they're not accountants, they're not lawyers, they don't have bank accounts, they don't have a pension plan. The way that they live is just like that. They say, I will come, I will join these forces, and I will raid this Christian village over here. We're going to kill all the men, and then we're going to divide the women. That's how they think. We're going to divide the women, and the elderly, we can leave them because that's very cruel. Let them see what we've done to their kids. They take pride on that. But we're going to take their young women and divide them. You're a warlord, you take 10 women, divide it between your men. You divide between your men. And the first night, just imagine what they do. And then later on, they take them with them and they make them their sex slave wives. Some of them from the age of 6 years old, they will kidnap them because they will think like, okay, she'll be my wife when she's 12. And that's the mentality. And then they take their, jewelry and their loot, and then they go on raiding, and that's how they make a living. So that is the Syria right now, that we removed the sanctions. When I say we, I'm talking the West, decided to remove the sanctions and to somehow support them. Because what do you think when you give money to Syria? It's the same thing like giving money to Gaza. Who's going to take the money? Hamas. Who's not going to get the money? The Christians, the Druze, the Alawites, the Kurds, the innocent Muslims that are living there that maybe don't want that faith for the country. I can assure you they're not going to be receiving that money. The one going to be receiving the money is the radical terrorist government and their people, and to please their people, because remember, they helped Jawlani, and again, correct me if I'm wrong, Joseph, but they helped Jawlani to take over this country. All these groups of bandits, this Arab version of Mad Max that came and joined and drove with their Toyotas and machine guns and the Dushkas and I don't know what. Now Jawlani works for them. Now Jawlani, they're coming telling him, hey, you promised us a government. We helped you take the government. So come on, where's the Sabaya? Where are the girls that you promised us? You told me that I'm going to take 100 Christian girls. I'm going to take the Druze beautiful virgin girls. I'm going to take the Alawite girls. Where are they? So Jawlani is now, you give him money. What do you think he's going to do with that money? Hey, listen, here's the money about the girls. Next week, when the world stops looking at us, I will let you take the girls from the Christian village over there. Don't do it now because, the world is looking at me. I just went and gave a hug to Macron. So, bear with me. I have a plan for the future, because that is, I'm telling you right now, again, it's just coming out of my mind, but that's probably how their brains work. I spend a lifetime fighting these savages and being among them. So I know how they think, and this is how they think. And this is what the West just doesn't understand. It not only doesn't understand, it doesn't listen to people like me, to people like Khalifa, to people like Joseph, a Christian who is from Syria, who is telling you what is going on in Syria, what happened to his family, and what's going to happen to the people in Syria. And then you have Americans, again, Christian country. If someone is watching here is an American, guys, listen very carefully. You are allowing your tax-paying money to go into Syria to help murder your Christian brothers and sisters, your Druze friends, your Alawite friends, your Kurdish brave soldiers and girls that are trying to stand there and fight and resist the sex slave trafficking that is happening. Don't let your government do it unaccountably. Ask for clear accountability. And if you ask me, the only way for accountability to see a true progressive Syria or one that is moving is how are they treating the Christians, the Druze, the Alawites, the Kurds, the minorities who are living there. Someone who decided to want to say, I'm not a Muslim anymore, I want to live my life. How do they treat them? That should be your cornerstone, because if we don't pay attention to what is happening to them, we're going to be letting another genocide just happening under our nose. Sorry, I went with a rant here. It's just things that I'm passionate about. So I'm gonna zip it now. Mike is yours.
Let's be like, what is really confusing about what's happening in Syria, that you always have those two faces, like it's a Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde kind of thing. In my humble opinion, that these two different ideologies both live, and these forces are fighting each other. And like you could see that even in Julani, they are like disarming the Palestinian terrorist organization, and there are some good things happening in Syria, but the forces of jihad, of making the ummah, is not going anywhere. They are fierce. They are terrorists. But I want to go back to Joseph, because his story is very interesting. I'm interested to hear what happened to his family, and when did he decided to move on. But first, for our friends, and correct me here if I'm wrong, Joseph, in my opinion, we hear the least about the Christians because there's a diverse kind of Christian groups in Syria. You have Assyrian, you have Catholics, you have all kind of. So if you can tell us a bit about the Christians in Syria, numbers, well, like you said before, Hasake, and I always remember in the morning TV programs, we had pictures of all different places in Syria, and Hasake somehow I remember as a place with water and rivers and big wheels on the river. So correct me if I'm wrong here as well.
Yeah. Thank you. By the way, I should have said that earlier, but I really appreciated being here, and thank you guys for having me. I'm enjoying listening to you and preparing to reply and or elaborate. I want to just take a couple of minutes, please, to elaborate and then touch upon a few of the topics that you guys mentioned. We have Ahmed al-Shara, so-called Jolani. Listen, guys, at the end of the day, these guys are not army. They're not Shadak. They're not IDF. But they're not regular soldiers. But it doesn't matter. The laws of warfare are the same. You need reinforcements. You need a steady flow of income. If not income, money. If not money and income, food. You need water. You need logistics. These people are directly funded by Qatar and Turkey. Ahmed al-Shara could be sniped out of existence. He could be stabbed. He could be poisoned. He could be yada, yada, yada. The reason that he's still the leader is that he is maintaining the cash flow to his fighters. I mean, imagine being a jihadi. It doesn't matter how devout you are. Even if you were like in the Waffen SS 8 years ago, I mean, if you don't eat, you're going to go home, right? So yeah, they were promised with women, with looting. They got free reign to loot. They couldn't do that in the beginning, in December, those 3, 4, 5 weeks where they took over Syria and offset the regime. Well, why couldn't they do that? Well, Turkey and Qatar. And yes, Israel and the United States must have played a role like that. From a perspective of this is what you can do, this is what you can't do. And this is why you saw no massacres against anyone in the first month or two, right? But then they start to get free reign. Basically, I want to say something. They are funded by Qatar, they're funded by Turkey. Never trust the Muslim. And I'm talking warfare, logistics, or not logistics, let's say tactics, strategy-wise. When you strategize, never trust what a Muslim faction, Islamist faction tells you. It does not matter. Look at their, and this, even if you guys don't share this, this is still my opinion, and I would like to express it. Muhammad himself broke the truce he had with Hudaybiyah, which is the pagan Arabian Peninsula tribe that ruled over the whole area before he came. He spent a number of years doing this secret da'wah, the da'wah to Islam. Now I forget the number of years exactly because I studied that when I was in sixth grade history, in Syria in school. But he spent a number of years, I think, doing the secret covert da'wah to Islam. And then when he was powerful enough, he changed all of those Quranic verses to others corresponding to a level of warfare and dominance. And he had a truce with the Quraysh, okay? And they were supposed to have a 10-year truce, a 10-year peace treaty of ceasefire. Keep talking about ceasefire. That guy broke it 3 years in. 3 years in. So when you look ahead and see, watch and read and listen, read the news about, the Abraham Accords, and Syria is going to join the Abraham Accords, be careful. Be wary. It's the same thing that Yasser Arafat did when he had the peace treaty, mediated by Clinton. It was the same thing. Never trust the Muslim in warfare. It does not matter. You have always to come from a standpoint of power, okay? And now, the Christians were hanging by a thread in Syria before the war, right? Basically, the Alawites were not religious. They have this religion, but it's covert, it's oral tradition. And even the religious of them didn't really mind or care about other minorities. I mean, yeah, granted, they didn't like the Sunnis, and the Sunnis hate them as much as they hate them, and they hate each other. But do you blame the Alawites having to fend for yourself, like the Druze for hundreds of years, going to mountains, escaping, just threading the mountains just because it's like a high point and it's hard to infiltrate? The Christians were hanging by a thread, as I said. There was one clause in the constitution of the Syrian Arab Republic protecting minorities. Now, I don't know if it was called the freedom of religion. I don't think so. I checked the constitution years ago, and it was just like a couple of sentences, about minorities. You're not to touch the Christians, basically, okay? When the regime started to disperse, lose its stronghold over certain areas, the Christians were left to fend for themselves. They were left to their own agencies, to their own accord. We were dying. We were being starved. My dad had connections from his work. He was a civil engineer, and he knew a person or two. I mean, the Alawites, the regime controlled everything, Syria was basically like a family military state, but it's basically a socialist state. They take half of your business, if not 60% of any business that you can open. And they say, if you don't want to do this partnership, and it's basically someone from the intelligence, right? The security agencies of Syria and Mukhabarat. If you don't pay us 60% and enjoy the remaining 40, you will not open this business. You go home. They were infiltrating the whole society, the fabric of Syria. And they did not mind the Christians. Why? Because we were peaceful. I mean, the Christians were better at taqiyya than Muslims use taqiyya today in Europe. Okay? Because we had our own Christian taqiyya of talking about Islam, the myth of the Prophet Muhammad, having his Jewish neighbor throw garbage and house garbage, household food waste in front of his door every day. And, he kept doing that, and Muhammad was not minding that at all. One day, the neighbor stops doing that, and the prophet, see how incredible he was. It was like, oh, this guy must be, unwell. He goes to him in his home, and lo and behold, he's sick, and he pays him a visit, solidifying the Muslim values. This is an oral tradition. It has no basis in hadith, which is like the Muslim literature. No presence in Quran, of course. The Quran was not about stories. It was just like mythology and, faith and whatever. Even laws or welfare. We used this story personally with people who we know. Oh yeah, man, Islam is the religion of peace. It's the pinnacle of coexistence, and we would tell that story. I remember being 15, 16 years old and telling that story to my classmates, and they were like impressed. Ooh, man, we didn't even know that about our own prophet, the Jewish story, the Jewish neighbor. No, it didn't happen. It didn't happen. There was a story even in Islamic tradition, and it's verified, I think, that, there was this woman that basically committed adultery, and I think she was pregnant, and she was begging the prophet for forgiveness and whatever, and he was like, yeah, you're in peace, you're at peace, nothing will happen to you, just go and give birth. And she gave birth, and they killed her. So when you have to contend with a fact like this, live with the people like that, and you're hanging by a thread, you have no foundations of longevity. You have no reason to exist. You're at their mercy. I mean, the Christians were the pioneers of industry. I want to, elaborate on what you guys said. You both mentioned that, that the Christians were good at what they did in Syria. We had Armenians. I think, according to a DNA test that I took like months ago, I'm 48% Armenian, by the way. Although I don't speak the language, but the Armenians in Aleppo were pioneers of industry. They would own businesses. They would try to live, In Syria and the Middle East, you don't have social welfare like immigrants in Europe do, You had to live and survive. And we did. This is how we got paid back, Like you pay the favor back, you receive one favor. Yeah, it's being called a potential, like as a woman, a sex slave, becoming a potential sex slave. Your man, your children will be executed or beheaded in front of camera to scare people. Yes, Al-Jawlani cannot be trusted. It wasn't different at all. Even when his former faction, the former title of his faction, Jabhat al-Nusra, invaded our city, it's the same thing. It's the Muslim Brotherhood. And by the way, while we're at it, Hamas is the Palestinian, so-called Palestinian title of the Muslim Brotherhood. There's no difference. They're funded by Qatar. So it's very dire, the minorities. I read a piece of news, by Marco Rubio a few days ago, that's saying that Syria is just about to, enter a new civil war, that a new civil war is about to erupt because they're trying to murder the Druze.
It never stopped. It always been the case, and they had small recess when Bashar al-Assad regime fell, and now they are continuing pushing it hardest. I would say, and please, anyone who hear me from Syria, Alawites, Kurds, or whatever, if you want to come and talk and give your side of the story, so you are more than welcome. We're welcoming everybody, because
everybody, even Muslims who want to counter some of the stuff that we said, or want to come support, please come. We will give you a platform as long as you be respectful.
Yeah, because what's interesting about it, you see, we're talking with Joseph here, and he is speaking about Islam and how they capture him, and he said, I'm not that religion anyway, but in my opinion, like he's not so interested in his own religion, but he's forced to see how Muslims see him, because this is a life and death situation. This is the story. So this is the interesting part about how it's happening. So please, how you end up in Sweden, and what happened to your family?
Yes, sir. Thank you for putting me straight, because I don't want to elaborate a lot or like diverge. But yeah, so there we have to at one point believe in universals. You know, when an entire people tells you this has been their experience, they're not making things up. I went to Turkey. I spent time with my family there, our extended family that we hadn't, known anything about before coming to Sweden. And I'm touching upon that thing, how I came to Sweden anyway. So we spent 8 months there, and yeah, they were Muslim. They think they are Kurdish. They're not. Culturally speaking, they are, I think, yeah. But and the audacity of calling us infidels, the audacity of calling us, second-class citizens. Listen, Christians of the Middle East are not angels by any stretch of the imagination, especially compared to Jewish people. Okay, and I don't like identity politics, so it doesn't matter if I'm Christian, Jewish. The truth is the truth. I'm not a believer myself. My spiritual or like belief in God just dissipated, faded away with time as I grew up. After I maybe a controversial statement, but after I reached the age of wisdom, or like rationale, I don't know. But it doesn't matter. Identity politics in the Middle East will get you killed if your name is Joseph. Joseph is an infidel name. Although it's Yusuf, the Arabic version, Yusuf is a Muslim name. It doesn't matter. Chamaon. It's both a Christian and a Jewish name. It's like you're gonna be killed twice. It does not matter.
Yeah, cool that name.
Yes, sir. So we came to Sweden in 2014 in Turkey. Then we arrived in Sweden. My dad had sent my sister right away, right after that battle. He sent her. I think probably even before that battle. After he sent her away, unfortunately, she had to be smuggled across Europe to Sweden, right? And the details of that thing are not that clear. I'm not even going to try to speculate about them. But all people sent their loved ones using money paid to smugglers, and we arrived here by family reunion, basically. And this is how I arrived in Sweden. Because after that battle, I had to leave my city. I had to leave my school. My school was bombed later. Not bombed from the air, by a bomb truck. 2-ton bomb truck. I had the principal of my school die in a rocket attack. Yeah. But at that time, I was in another city. I moved to Al-Kamishli, right? Which was a stronghold of the Kurdish.
Someone drove a truck full of explosives into a school and blew himself up.
Someone drove a 2-ton loaded truck, explosive loaded truck, like a lorry, a truck, these massive trucks from construction sites.
Into a
no, a general school, but it doesn't matter. If they kill fellow Muslims, they'll go to heaven. That's the belief, no? So, who cares if we kill Muslims? Like, that was the belief of Ibn Taymiyyah, that was the belief of Bin Laden. It does not matter if we kill. Like in Kenya, the Qaeda bombing. Yeah, they killed Muslims too. Well, how did al-Zawahiri and Bin Laden justify that? Yeah, they're Muslims? Okay, they'll go to heaven. It's why, whitewashed. So, we came here, and I had, abruptly join my family in our Kia car. That was mid-sized, I can say. We filled everything we owned in that car, okay? Everything we owned in that car, we stuffed it. We stuffed it to our necks. We were sitting among our belongings, right? Under them, literally. And we drove that 80 kilometers from Al-Hasaka to Kamishli. We even had a problem on the way there, because there was this diversion of a highway that was blocked by the Syrian military. And they had installations, let's say like a fortress, a stronghold to the left. We took the right turn, and they thought we were a car bomb because the car abruptly stopped. I mean, you have a wall in front of you. You have to diverge. You have to go back and take the left-hand turn. We did that, and the commander of that area, of that site, was so mad that my dad, calling him, Syrian military, by the way, but he still was yelling because he thought we were a car bomb, and they were about to use, I don't know, PKCs and heavy-duty 50 caliber guns to, basically decimate our car. And we had family in there. So my dad turns the lights on in the car, and, it's a family, and the guy breathes a sigh of relief. But he was yelling because he held off his soldiers. Don't shoot yet. Don't shoot. At my command, don't shoot. He basically told my dad that was what he had said. So we escaped death multiple times. Not even by that al-Nusra battle. Multiple times. And on our way, one of our commutes between Hasek and Kamishli, we had to do a couple, to move all of our belongings. I mean, it's an entire three bedroom apartment. You have to have a few trips. And we were witnessing basically a battle between then Daesh, ISIS at this point, and the Syrian military. And you can see the dust and the air and the bullets. You can hear them. And the splash of dirt, shell hits. It was traumatic. So we came here. We came to Sweden. We have relatives here, and basically I had no contact with my school friends from Syria for a number of years until Facebook became popular among them, I guess. And I found a few of them on another account, childhood account that I had. And it was such a sigh of relief to know that they are all alive. I even had a childhood crush, a girl that I loved at the age of 11. This is an aspect of my childhood because we had dreams over there. It might be trivial to mention now, and she doesn't mean anything to me now. I mean, except that I wish her all the best as a fellow human being. But all of those dreams were crushed. We arrive here, and lo and behold, the Social Democratic Party is basically a socialist party here, and the Left Party, which is basically the former Communist Party of Sweden, at least as far as Sweden is concerned, welcoming immigrants, a complete state of lawlessness, borderlessness, the Green parties of Sweden. They don't care at all, at all. I have felt just as insecure as I did in Syria at many times living here, especially the first few years when this trauma still persists. Yes. You look over your shoulders, you think someone is going to stab you or kidnap you, because they had threatened to kidnap my little sister, right? I mean, I forgot to mention, and forgive me for that. After the battle with al-Nusra, ISIS called us. Like, we had affiliates of ISIS. My dad suspected it was a friend of him that basically wanted to steal our apartment after we left. That three-room apartment with a kitchen and a big, massive dining room or like a guest room. Our apartment was luxurious, for the average in that city, and he just basically wanted to take it, like to be the protector of that thing. Just Abu Joseph, Abu Joseph, like calling my dad Joseph's dad. Give me charge of the apartment, and my dad suspects that it was that guy, which basically is an alcoholic, by the way. This is why you can't trust these people. Like, they drink alcohol and they will stab you in your back because they followed their prophet. He had connections, and my dad suspects that he actually called people who are ISIS affiliates or de facto ISIS members, calling us on the phone, calling us filthy Christians. No, in Syria before we came to Sweden. And I'm sorry it was a disconnect because I just wanted to mention briefly what happened. I messed the chronological order. So after that,
your story is captivating, man. Literally, I think me and Khalifa
thank you, sir.
are mind blown. Man.
Thank you, my friend. Thank you.
You know what I'm thinking, Mansour? Mad Max. Mad Max.
Yes, sir.
Mad Max.
Right there.
I know.
No, because
in the comments. Just 1 second. I'm taking notes of interesting questions. And at the end, I'm going to let Joseph answer them because there's a lot of interesting questions that were aimed to Joseph here. I think everybody here is just captivated by
I'll try to speed it up then. I want to talk about Israel for a while.
Do exactly what you need. You have our own platform right now. It's for you, Joseph. Share what you have to share.
Thank you, man. I appreciate it. Thank you. It means a lot to me, by the way. Basically, after that battle, after ISIS got stronger, defeating al-Nusra, they had a stronghold like in Idlib, in the city of Idlib, by the way, like now so-called HTS, before they, took over Syria, because ISIS was strong. ISIS is de facto Al Qaeda, right? So they called my dad on the phone. You filthy Christian, we want ransom. Sell your apartments, sell your car, pay us ransom. Otherwise, we're going to cut your head off. We're going to behead you. And my dad was like, who are you? I was in the room, in the kitchen, in fact. Who are you guys? What's going on? Who sent you? Who are you? Who are you affiliated with? We are from the Islamic State, right? No one calls themselves ISIS. It's like the Islamic State. And you filthy Christian, we are coming after you. And I think they even talked about, kidnapping my sister. That was the point, the children. Like my sister was the youngest, 7 years old at that point, right? So my dad decided, okay, that's it. That's it. We're gonna send her off, and this is how she got smuggled out of Syria. Yeah, and we stayed there.
At the age of 7, your dad sent your sister off and smuggled her outside of a war-worn country through a turmoil of a journey all the way to Europe. At the age of 7.
She turned 8 and she was here. So yeah, basically.
What a journey.
It was a treacherous journey, by the way. It wasn't easy at all. But I'm not at liberty to talk about it because I don't know the details and it's messed up. Yeah, it's just like a smuggling, regular, nothing, no secrets, no magic.
I know. But I've helped some of my relatives go through that journey, and I escorted them closely. And I've heard the chances of surviving that journey are sometimes not so sure. Physically, mentally, life is on the line. It's a very, very hard journey.
Yes,
wow.
yes.
The age of 8, a girl.
Yeah. I mean, I'm very happy she did, because I don't think she witnessed, I'm not sure the chronological order, and forgive me because it's been like a number of years, 11 years, like 10 years now. But the problem is that it was so surreal. Like when you have PTSD, which I had at that point, I don't have a war-related PTSD anymore. At least what I think, it's muffled. But I don't think she witnessed that war, that battle, because it was really, really, scary. It was frightening. I mean, you lose your ability to control your muscles, your body. You start to pee yourself, as I told you. And arriving here and seeing the infiltration of the Muslim Brotherhood, I read a piece of news that is very funny, by the way, because they say that the French government is pointing out Sweden as a stronghold of the Muslim Brotherhood. Like Sweden, they are mentioned in a French report. Like our reputation is through the mud, ridiculous.
My God. Yeah, you know what? I feel less safe in Germany as an Arab than in Israel.
Yes. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And Israel, 2018, 3 years in, I arrived in Sweden in 2015, right? Basically in parallel with all that immigration wave. Although our way was different, family reunion with my sister, right? She had to live here, I think, for a couple of years alone. So grow up and yeah. But in 2018, I have a friend, a journalist, a freelance journalist, Swedish guy, peaceful, loving, guy that loves Israel. I don't think he's Jewish, he's Swedish. And he and I worked with translating, videos from Hamas in 2017, I think. Yeah, and 16, 17. I barely spoke English. I barely spoke Swedish, but I could, get the job done anyways. And I helped him basically translate Arabic to English, and he translated English to Swedish. Basically, subtext, like subtitles on videos of Hamas, the videos of, those videos that hail and glorify terrorism. I'm just trying to remember one of the songs, actually. It's a lot of songs like Fidaiyon Ana, I'm a guerrilla fighter, I'm a sacrificer, I'm a suicide warrior. And all of those videos and articles, I helped for a few months, and it actually reached the Swedish parliament, the Sweden Democratic Party, which is the main right-wing anti-immigration party. mentioned his blog in the Swedish parliament, and I was really proud of myself at that point. Barely spoke the language, and we reached so far, at least among the right wing of the conservatives. Not that it doesn't matter at all which faction it is. As I told you, universal truths bear no identity. They bear no political affiliation. It does not matter. And he introduced me. There were a number of IDF soldiers. Gosh, I love these IDF soldiers. They are still my Facebook friends on Facebook, okay? And they were coming here. They participated in the former Gaza war, I think 2014. And they were talking about humanitarian missions as well as fighting in Gaza, the former war, right? And they came here talking about peace and peace initiatives and their efforts of establishing peace. And I had to go through the gate, outside, I don't know, it was the synagogue in Stockholm. I don't really remember the facility, so forgive me for that. And I remember Israeli security agents outside speaking in Hebrew, and they're having these radio transmitters, these so-called walkie-talkies, and they're talking about me and my guy. But he showed them like a certificate or something that he was affiliated, like the journalist guy, right, the Swedish one. And they let me in. Someone came from inside, and they welcomed us. And I entered this place, and they were outside. By the way, there was this gentleman, an Israeli born in Tiberias, right? In Israel, Amnon was like a second father to me, although I didn't know him that close. He welcomes me and he kisses me on my cheeks and he's like, "Welcome, Habibi," and he speaks Arabic. And he's very Jew, man, living in Sweden, like he'd been here for a long time. He later succumbed to cancer, by the way, he and his wife. It broke my heart because I couldn't see him. So he is the first Jew that I interacted with in Sweden, probably in my life, the first Jew. God bless his soul, man. Although I don't believe in God, but I will say that because I honor him. I'm going to speak his language. God bless his soul. God bless his soul. And he welcomes me, Habibi, and he's talking to me. And look at us. We're peaceful, aren't we? And he had this Theodor Herzl silhouette, black silhouette on his white shirt, and he has all these fancy T-shirts with this basketball player with a beard, like a Jew, and it says "Just Jew It." He had the best T-shirts I saw in my life, and Amnon loved me, and I loved Amnon. I went to his Stockholm restaurant, an Israeli restaurant, where they serve hummus with eggs and meat and all of these fancy recipes that they devised. And I spent time there. He introduced me to his daughter, one of his daughters, and he was really sweet to me, and it touched me because something that I didn't mention about the Christians, I don't consider myself to be a Christian, even culturally, like I am. It is my culture and my values, but I don't wake up and say, "Oh, I'm a Christian now. What am I going to do today?" No, because the Assyrians, the Armenians, the Chaldeans, they hate each other because of the genocide that happened in 1915, right? It's this victimhood complex. The victim, in Swedish, we call it offerkoftan, which is basically like the victimhood jacket, let's say, or the outfit. We always say, take off the victimhood jacket off of you. We hate each other. I mean, Syrians and Assyrians hate each other. They don't intermarry. They gossip. And basically, they're not united. If they did like Jews did, they would have had a country by that point, okay? Even if they did what the Druze are doing, because the Druze are highly likely to have their own state or join Israel, which is basically the same thing, even better.
Inshallah, brother.
Yes, I really wish so, because even my dad talking about the Druze, talking about the Druze from his early university day years and so on, he never mentioned anything negative about the Druze. He always commended them, So I have a very positive view of the Druze, not because my dad said something. Of course, I grew up and I learned the truth myself either way. But we Christians don't have a nation today, or even recognition of the Ottoman genocide, although many countries do, acknowledge that. Well, because we hate each other. I'm half Armenian. I don't think my family knows. My dad's side, his mom's side, half of them are Armenian. But I did this test, and I'm like Italian, a little 17% Greek. It's a mashup. It's a mixture of different ethnicities. Unfortunately, no Jewish genes, but it makes it even better. You know why? Because I wake up every day and I am immersed in my love for Israel. I say, Am Israel Chai, every single day, because as I told you, identity politics does not matter. You don't have to be a Jew to acknowledge or partake in this incredible phenomenon. Because
Wow.
yeah, you don't have to. You don't have to, because the truth is like the sun. It's clear. Now, I don't like, you probably guessed it by now, you know, I'm not that fond or like immersed in the love and the infatuation in other Christians. It does not matter if I'm born in a Christian family. As long as you're a victim, especially, you know, hating Jews. I even had a Christian guy when remember I came to Sweden when I was, 16 and a half, 17. There was a guy like probably 17 and a half, like the year after I learned Swedish, I joined regular school, calling the Jews like in the classroom, calling them rats. I was infuriated. He was not reported. He was not dealt with. Everyone knew. Even our local librarian, a Jewish lady, I think her name was Anna Karen, or Anna. So she had to leave because, and that was like in 2017, 18, no war with Gaza, with Hamas, calling her out and you're Jewish, you guys are destroying Palestinian lives. Basically, going into the library, the school library, right? It's a part of the library, it's, the school itself. In Sweden, a school library is basically a room inside a school designated for children, you know, like the students. You go and you borrow books from there to learn, to do whatever. So she left the school. It took me a year to know. And eventually the Swedish teacher breaks the news. And she's a social democrat. As soon as she discovered my Facebook page, she blocked me right away. Although she had been a supporter of me, you know, learning Swedish. So I met these people 2 years after that, like 2015, okay, I started learning Swedish 2016, maybe the incident happened in 2017. 2018, I meet these, basically I'm let in with my Swedish journalist friend. We watch and, you know, live and film that speech of these three guys. I love them, these Israeli soldiers. Man, I took pictures with them. I was like, and I met the ambassador, by the way, and he flinched. The guy flinched. I was like, I'm from Syria. I put my hands on his shoulder to like pat his shoulder, and he flinched. He was like, yeah, no security agents are here to protect me. We were infiltrated. And I was like, I'm from Syria, but I love you guys. So, because his body language was very skeptic at the beginning. Yeah, but no. And they're still my friends. Amnon passed away, but my Zionism has been growing every day since 2018, probably even 2017.
Wow.
And yeah.
You know, a very interesting story that I took from Christianity, actually. I remember when I was an officer in the army, I was reading a lot about, you know, religions. I was very interested, fascinated by Judaism, Christianity, Islam. And I was one day trying to wonder, what kind of a message can I learn from Jesus as an officer and as a commander in the army? Because my job was violent. You know, let's face it, when you are an officer in the army, in a combat unit, special forces, the job is violent. Don't try to hide it. You need to, you know, be able and ready to bring violence to the enemies so you can protect the innocent. And it was very hard for me in the beginning because I said, you know, he was all about lovey-dovey, turn the other cheek, love your enemies. And then one day I read the verse about when he washed the feet of his disciples. And I came and I said, wow, what a story of power and strength. You come and you say that you are the Son of God, that you are the leader. And you come and say, if I am willing to wash the feet of these disciples, then who are you not to wash the feet of one another? Now, why am I saying that? Because that explains so much the way that Christianity turned out to be, you know, so successful in so many aspects, you know, and so peaceful, you might call it. We're not talking the Crusaders. They kind of went a little bit, you know, cow poop crazy. But when you look at the Muslims, their leader was not about washing the feet of one another, was not about turning the other cheek. He went and he betrayed allies by breaking an alliance. He went and he murdered people, and his warlords went with and murdered. So it makes it very easy for a lot of these disciples that are following right now, not all, but quite a lot of them, to come and say, yeah, we're just following the footsteps of our leader. He betrayed, ceasefires. Why shouldn't we? He invented the term of hudna, which is the dictionary Muslim definition of betraying a ceasefire. So that was just a very interesting way for me. I said, you know what? As an officer, I can definitely learn from Jesus here, because if he was willing to go and wash the feet of his disciples, who am I not to be able to go and relieve one of my soldiers on his guarding duty? And take one of my soldiers and says, listen, go home. I'll stay the Shabbat here. I know that you have a rough time. Go, I'll stay. And I did that. And that was inspired a lot by the book of the Christians, I gotta say.
Mansour, I think you spot on what you said about Islam. I'm like, we are allowed to criticize Islam, and I think sitting on the bench watching the Islamic world, because we cover it as Druze trying to coexist or co-fight against those extremists. And I think, if there's a message in Islam that we all should learn about, is that they need to acknowledge the humanity of the Prophet Muhammad and not treat him as divine. I think that Muslims don't criticize him, although all the scriptures talking him about being so human. He was illiterate, he didn't know how to read or write, and then he had the Quran or things like that. And the main idea, if I were a Muslim, I would say, okay, I have a prophet. This prophet is as human as any other next guy, but still he could divine and still be human and could mistake. So if I'll take a role model of him, doing the not higher self of being a human being, but things like, betraying pacts or things that he actually signed on, or things that he did and then he lied about, or whatever. I'm not getting to details, but I think there was a message, and the message is written because he says, I'm a human, I didn't know how to read or write, but I got touched by a divine force. And then you have this Quran, and you could say, you can't dismiss Quran or Islam saying it's a tradition of 2 billion people that has nothing to do with humanity and didn't contribute anything to humanity. That will be totally wrong. But you need to see doubt in this culture, because once it goes from the axioms, it doesn't go any deeper. There's no criticism, there's no culture of debating or trying to think otherwise. And this is why we get these herds of hyenas, bloodthirsty hyenas, reaching out anything that's not the Muslim, let's drink its blood.
I'm just gonna say briefly. Maybe regardless of the character of Jesus, if it actually existed, or not, but maybe following the teachings of Jesus and taking them way too seriously, as opposed to how you should adapt them to the current status quo. Maybe that was one of the reasons that the Christians of the Middle East, Oriental Christians, got what they got. Turning your cheek, you can turn your cheek to your enemy just so many times before you have to just block that off, slap them back, and say, I am here. I'm an integral part of this society. I'm not going to accept that. Because if you take any religious teaching seriously, or literally, and you adapt them over and over again without any update, even Windows has updates, for goodness sakes, Windows 11. If you take religious texts from thousands of years ago, where people lived under the Byzantines, the Roman Empire, well, yes, maybe then you had to turn your cheeks, because if you didn't, you were, I don't know, crucified. You think that Jesus was the only one that was crucified? No, that was, by the way, a way to punish, thieves and criminals. So maybe that's why the Christians are, less than not even like an integral part of any society at the moment. They all fled to Europe. As a Christian myself, culturally speaking, you know, as half, let's say, Syriac, half Armenian, whatever I am, because I'm not that devout. You can see it in me, you know, I don't represent them. I don't claim to do that. Yeah, very, very, you know, very orthodoxly, no. But I think that maybe if you guys had just looked at the Jewish example, the Jewish phenomenon, Jews have been more successful than any people they lived among. 3,000-4,000 Jews were expelled, like, I don't know, in the 1200s from Britain, UK, which had, like, I think 1 million in terms of population. 3,000 Jews were expelled. Why did they do it? Yeah, well, let's freeze all of their, you know, means of income. Let's prevent them from trade. Let's block them off, the market, the financial market. Let's choke them, you know, put them into a chokehold, and command them to survive, you know, or be well. Yeah, well, what did the Jews? Jews are smart, man. They had all that capital, and they were like, okay, we're gonna lend some money here and there. Jews contributed to the construction of many of Europe's cathedrals. You see all those beautiful cathedrals, you think those are Catholic? They are maybe Catholic, but Jews helped, you know, it's a well-established truth, you know, known today. Many kings of Europe actually used Jewish money to fund engineers and, yeah, archaeologists to build. So yeah, so yeah, of course, if you compare the myth or the character of Jesus with Muhammad, yeah, well, Muhammad was a warlord, and Jesus was more of a philosopher.
Yeah,
they got crucified.
Yeah, and I think, you know, I can definitely, because I was wondering that myself when I was young and I was, you know, joining the army, and I had like I would say mostly Arab Christian friends, because in Israel you have the Messianic Jews, which are Jewish Christians. They're very fierce. They go to the army, they're in the special forces, you know, they know how to turn the other cheek, but they know how to break your hand before you touch their cheek if you're, you know, doing something wrong to them, or I don't know what. And I've seen that, and I was wondering, like, why are the Arab Christians, first of all, so polluted by pro-Palestine propaganda? Because there was a lot of anti-Semitism there, and I always wondered, like, guys, you're Christians. You know, the Muslims are clearly, for a very long time in history, including today, were enemies of Christianity, and they want to oppress you. The only ones that don't want to oppress you are probably the Jews. That's number one. Number two, your savior was a Jew. So you should be much more in the Jewish camp, but then you're going and saying, yeah, I support Palestine and this and this. So the brainwashing of Palestinians, pro-Palestine Islam, was very, very strong among Christian Arabs in the Middle East. Now, maybe that's, you know, Stockholm syndrome, where they just kind of turn the other cheek so long that now they're kind of, you know, protecting the abusive husband. But one thing about Christianity, and that kind of said, okay, thank God for that. And people might not like it, but I always say thank God for the Crusaders. Then people, oh, you're talking. Well, you know what, guys? If it wasn't for the Crusaders, we'd be living under a Muslim Sharia empire, planet Earth, right now. It's the same thing like I'm saying, thank God to the Americans. If it wasn't for the Americans, we'll all be speaking German or in a gas chamber right now, or having a fingernail scratching on the walls. So there were, and if you look at this, these two Christian nations. So when Christianity went and took seriously its role to be strong, they saved the world, not once, not twice. And when Christianity just kind of forget that and go full on, you know, Stockholm syndrome, just turning the other cheek, they end up, you know, being abused, being persecuted, being chased, and also for some very bizarre reason, being against their allies, which are the Jews or the Druze. You know, I don't think Christianity went against the Jews in Lebanon, but in general, there was quite a lot of hate toward the Jews, although now I think they're kind of waking up when it comes to that. If you look in America, I think Americans know to put a pretty good kind of distinction between being a Christian and also being, you know, pacifist, because if you take it scripture-wise, and again, I'm a kind of a nerd about scriptures, Jesus is coming and saying, I'm the Son of God, I am God, God that came to earth. You know, some theologies look at it differently, but in general, that same God is the God, is the Lord of wars, is the God Almighty, is the God that went, you know, and his spirit went through David and his guys, and then he just went, and one guy in one battle killed 400 people, or, you know, David ran and just killed Goliath, or he will come in the end of day, Jesus will be coming on a horse with a sword, and, you know, in Armageddon. So there is images of Jesus warrior, like, and I think some Christians kind of hold into that as well, and just like, turn the other cheek is cute, but like I said, there's a red line for that. But the Arab Christians completely ignore that. They're just all about turn the other cheek. And that's why in Syria, at least, you see that the Druze took a little bit more seriously defending themselves than the Christians. Now, yes, you have Christians here and there that had the guns and weapons, says, up until my house, my daughters, my kids, stay away from them. And I admire and I respect that. But as a community, they were trying more to survive with this pacifist mentality. And it's not working too well for them right now, I gotta say. They have to figure out a way, either find new allies.
Yielding to extremism is not gonna do anything good for them, and they are not organized. I just want to say that look at the hour. Like, we are 20 minutes past 1 hour, and I think we could stay till the morning. But we need to.
It's fascinating. Yeah, so maybe we should.
This is the longest broadcast we had ever had.
Yeah. Wow,
Thank you,
man.
sir. Thank you.
No, it's fascinating. So you know what? I just want to say, someone made a very comment fascinating. Joseph is the real deal. He wiped out his Israeli flag in a crown of a pro-Palestinian protester in Stockholm. I told him this is not wise.
I did.
You did that.
I did that. I think I faced 1,000. I faced 1,000 people, and I was surrounded by like 50 or 100. They tried to grab my flag. I hate that specific Israeli flag because it was made of polyester, and I was like, that's a cheap material. You know what? It held. Like 4 or 5 people tried to grab it from me, and I still have it, and it's hanging from the wall.
With Palestinians with the Israeli flag.
Oh yeah, they were coming by, and I decided either now or never. You know why? It was the 400th day of the kidnapping of the captives, the hostages. And I was at a square in Stockholm. 1 minute prior, I met this angel of a man of Russian origin, an Israeli that speaks Arabic, man. And he welcomes me and hugs me. He just met me, for goodness sakes. And they all embraced me. I'm like, I'm born in Syria, but I love you, and I'm a Zionist. And I'm not, this is the kind of guy that says, oh, I love the Jews, but those evil Zionists. No, it's a false narrative. You want the Jews, a minority, to have this speck of dust on the map of Israel, like population and size-wise. You have to be a Zionist. I don't care about religious Zionism. I'm not a believer, really, but it's the heritage, it's the culture. So yeah, I did that, and I 20 minutes prior, I was going home, and all of a sudden I see a demonstration, and I'm like, I have my flag because I participated in that hostage remembrance thing. And I'm like, either now or never. I situated myself, among police officers because I know those people can be rogue, right? And I basically raised my flag in the air, arms wide, and smiling. I was not trying to provoke a reaction or anything, just smiling because calling me murderer and, genocide. They thought I was a Jew, and that's an honor, by the way. Thank you, guys. You thought I was a Jew. That's an honor. I'm not, but hey, if it bugs you, how about that? I'll double down. I'm a Jew, and all of a sudden, yeah, they surround me and they tried to grab the flag, and a few of them spit at me. And by the way, they were like talking in Swedish, and I see their faces. They are Arabs, and all of a sudden, I'm like, yeah. Murder, and I'm like, Wallah, shut which in Arabic basically means, oh, really? Oh, how dare you? Really? And I was speaking their language. They were shocked. So, and I reported one of them to the police, by the way, because she spat at me, and it's still ongoing. How about that? Yes, I'm a Zionist, man.
Wow, man, what a rock star! What a rock star! Here's another one. It's a question by our dear friend Leah, and yes. She asked, do Christians in Syria serve in the military? Are they united to protect one another? Is there self-defense tactics used and taught? Okay.
Yeah, unfortunately, we don't have that in Syria. We did not have that. I mean, I'm talking about the time of the regime, the regime era. Syrians, just like everyone, went and served in the army. You would barely fire, shoot 30 bullets. It's an AK-47, basically. All of it is Russian arms. And no, You barely get to practice. This is why Israel special forces have such a good time in Syria. It's like going to a party, you know, everyone is drunk and you're the only sober one there, and you can slap everybody like in one go, and no one even knows,
you know,
right? So
you know what? I have a crazy idea, but
yes,
Mansour, you're gonna love it, Abu Rafi. Let's take Dar'a, clean it from all the Muslims, and not
Oh, yeah.
clean it like killing them, just population exchange, and bring all the Christians and all the Jews to south of Syria, and let's build a state of people who are ethnic
Yes.
minorities there.
Me and Khalifa will go and train the soldiers there. We'll train the citizens
Yeah.
there how to fight. He will
But
teach
just-
them how to use K9 dogs and how to use weapons. I will train them. We'll train them. We'll make them ready, strong to face these barbarians.
Just to answer the lady, you know, to pay her due. I mean, they go to the military and they are Christians, basically. So what happens to them, Leah? They are drafted across provinces. If you're an Alawite, you can serve in your hometown. If you're a Christian, yeah, good luck, buddy. So no, you're sent either to the front lines, you know, at that point fighting ISIS, let's say, among others, factions,
Sniper detector or mine detector?
yeah, well, you know, either or. But the problem was you were not protected. If you had connections, yeah, maybe. I mean, my dad knew one or two here and there. He was not. He was actually fired from his job because he prevented corruption where he worked. They wanted to steal construction materials and have free gifts. You know, the mukhabarat, the security forces. So he basically was falsely reported and fired from his position. But he intervened a couple of times to help my uncle's mom's brothers because they were going to be drafted and they had no idea where they were being taken.
Wow.
So yeah, so he saved them. They served in the city. No self-defense tactics, no nothing. It's the regular military. Believe me, a foot soldier in Israel could probably like overpower 50 Syrian soldiers. 50 is just a stretch. Let's say 20 or 100, because the Israeli soldier has the spirit. It's my own stronghold. The Syrians know they are just serving the dictator, trying not to be punished.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. No, I
yep.
agree with that. I just want to read this one out loud because that one made me very, very happy to read it. It's from a guy from Syria. He's a Druze, and he said, MQQ123, and we said, we Druze lived with Christians. We shared everything. We lit the tree with them. When we say lit the tree, he's not talking burning it like the Muslims do. He's talking, you know, in Christmas they put the candles and the lights.
Yes.
We visited the church and they visited our shrines, but I do not understand why Muslims hate us all and fight us. So I think that summarized kind of what we spoke here. And maybe to finish with the last question.
Yeah.
How, again, Lee, with a great question, how do you keep your community in Sweden from becoming little Syria regime and face again the horrors?
Honestly, I don't know. I've been living here for a decade. Exactly a decade, I think. It was in May. And people here are oblivious. They don't care. What they care about is just after work meetups, parties, voting for the left because they care about the environment. Like, we have some idiot, you know, terminology, like words, expressions here, like climate anxiety. We have Greta Thunberg, by the way, is our national treasure. We all, you know, are proud of her, aren't we? Yeah. So, and especially climate anxiety, it's not even a joke. You would see people online writing about climate anxiety because they want to go, I don't know, to the Bahamas, and they have to take an airplane, and they're like writing about climate anxiety. People here are so peace stricken. You know, it's like a strike. You're stricken with peace. You are ill with peace. Your diagnosis is peace. And that's the case, by the way. So no, there's no way until the people here wake up and decide we're gonna regain our national identity. That's the only thing. I have given up hope on Sweden, by the way. So I'm not as a good spokesman for Sweden.
Yeah, Sweden kind of, you know, I've once sailed on the ship with a captain from Sweden.
Yes.
Great guy. He was a captain of a ship, and I was, you know, in charge of the security of his operation, training his staff, and etc. And he told me that he left Sweden. And I said, why? He says, because it's not safe for my kids anymore. He says, Sweden have become the capital crime of Europe. He says that there's more grenades and RPGs shot in some towns in Sweden than in Mosul. And I was like, what? And he says, yeah, man, it's like, it's completely out of control. How is it going there? And I remember that during that time, that's when Trump was warning about Sweden. Everybody was laughing about him. And, the same people that laughed at Trump when he came and he warned them about Russia and about their energy, and look who's laughing now, So I think these people are very, like you said, they're struck by peace. They've been poisoned by overdose of peacefulness that they kind of forgot what it means of what's happening around the world.
They think everyone wants to become like them, one of them. No! Iranians and Afghans come here and they fight. Iraqis and Iranians come here and spit at each other in public transportation. We have videos of that on Instagram and the social media. It's very funny. No.
Yeah. Well, by the way, thank you, Shauna, for the Hobbit shoes. If anyone doesn't know, that's a joke. I said before, we should support the Hobbits and buy them shoes. And it became kind of a joke in this channel where people do sometimes super thanks. They say for the Hobbit shoes. So in case someone is wondering, there's no Hobbit shoes fetish here. It's just a very funny joke. But just like Khalifa said, it's becoming quite late in both places. And Joseph, my hat's off. I'm so honored and glad that you were able to come here and share. I think everybody was super fascinated. We still have 221 people live listening to podcast, and that's not that easy to get today, especially in a podcast that was we published it basically half an hour before it started, almost. And by the way, I wanted to strangle Khalifa because he was the one that said let's do it this hour. And this way I want to remind guys, there is a fight coming soon with the Druze MMA fighter. His name is Sean. Okay, he is right now about to go on the stage and fight an MMA fight. The guy is a proud Israeli Druze, and he goes with the Israeli Druze and the flag Druze. Go and watch that video and cheer for Sean. We love him. I was super afraid we're gonna miss this, but I came and said, you know what? As much as I love Sean and I want to watch this fight, I really want to be in this podcast here and talk to you, Joseph. So luckily the fight didn't happen yet. So Khalifa, I'm not gonna come and take my frustration on you. But thank you so much, Joseph. And maybe Khalifa, you want to close with a few final wise words of the shepherd.
Well, first of all, good luck to Sean. It was really fascinating conversation, and I really hope that other people like Joseph come forward, speak with us, and let us know. Share this conversation to other people. Write in the comments. This helps a lot with the algorithm. A lot of people are asking us how to support the Druze, how to support the minorities. So the best way I know about is to support this channel, Mansour's channel, and trying to be as much involved in such conversation is the best practical way to do so. So thank you, everybody. It was a true privilege. Joseph, we're going to hear more about you because there's a lot to talk to you.
I'm happy to join again. I was just going to say it's rather mutual, the feeling, and it's my honor. And listen, just hit me up. I'll do another one. So
you just became one of our repeated guests. I'm telling you right now, we're going to have you again. That was very, very educational. So thank you, everybody. And like I always say, don't do anything stupid. In general, just don't do anything that I would do. That's a very good advice to live your life by. Trust me when I say that. And one more time, go and watch Sean. His fight is about to start. Okay?
Yes, send me a link. I'm going to watch it.
Champion. He's a champion. Well, he's going to win this fight. All right.
Okay.
Joseph, wait. We're just going to finish the call and we can keep talking.
Yeah. Of course.
Good night.